Hi, I'm Sarah Jefferis. I'm super excited to be here at the Literary Festival. Thank you again to Buffalo Street Books and to Jen for organizing it. This reading has a focus on gender and sexuality. There'll be 4 of us reading, and they are Kate Klein, myself, Angelina Mirabella, and Heather Dorn. And in between the readers, I'll just hop up and say a little bit more about them. So we're going to start off with Kate Klein, who is a writer and editor for Cornell, the author of Eternal Girl, and also in Actors Workshop. I am as well, so I had to say that. All right, welcome, Kate Klein.
Thank you. So my novel, Eternal Girl, is the tale of the prodigal son with a female twist. It's about a girl who gets kicked out of a Christian camp for smoking pot, and the chaos that she creates when she returns 6 years later, seeking answers after waking up from a near-death experience. By this point, Carmel is 23, working as a cook in an Iowa City sports bar. Various men have floated in and out of her life, but the target of her journey back home to her place of origin on the shore of Lake Huron is her father. When she gets there, he's gone, but pieces of him are pieces of me, she says halfway through the novel, and I have to find them to find him to find me. So she's trying to piece her father together, she pieces herself together. What emerges as she searches is a double portrait of the same passions, fears, weaknesses, and loves filtered through 2 lives, one male and one female, one father and one daughter. So my reading today doesn't tackle issues of gender head on. You're not going to get any massive answers. I'm just going to have fun. So I picked a chapter that I felt was entertaining and that hints at a young woman's journey figuring out what it means to be a woman in her expanding world. So I'm going to read from a chapter titled Bacon Bits. Carmel has just arrived back at Cedar Haven, this camp, for the first time in 6 years, walking the last 2 miles along the shore of Lake Huron. Her left hand is in a big, messy bandage. As soon as I left the Cedar Haven beach, I knew something had changed. Where only a dirt path had been before, a fancy wooden deck marched smartly up the steep slope. And this wasn't any wooden staircase. This edifice had multiple platforms with flights of steps leading from one to the next. Lamps on posts stood at intervals alongside the stairs. They glowed now in the evening dusk, casting wavery reflections on the calm water of the bay. Far out, the guardian rocks stood solemn as ever, but the fancy deck and lights made them seem like outsiders. Big, gentle thugs, gentle enough to keep the riffraff, big enough to keep the riffraff out, but dressed too shabbily to be let in the club. I looked back at the lampposts. Someone had wired the beach for electricity. What was this, Martha's Vineyard? I stepped onto the new wooden staircase gingerly, afraid my weight might set off an alarm. But no, nothing, not even a squeak. The boards, so new they still smelled like cut lumber, bore me up as if I were made of air. My father loved this place. The schedule, the rituals, the songs. He loved the paths that became more worn each summer, and that was all the change he wanted. For years, I had spent time here resenting his stuck-in-the-past habits, but now the first sign of change, these brand new boards, sent up a whiff of betrayal. For the first time since leaving Iowa, I wondered if my father had even been up that summer. He would not have built this deck. I ascended one step at a time, afraid but a little giddy, floating silently upon those perfect boards between the glowing lanterns. Up on the bluff stood the dining hall, same as always, but was that a light on inside? At the top, I found that the dining hall windows were open. I smelled food. I heard dishes clinking outside, a baby fussing, and voices. "Don't bounce him like that," a woman said. "You know he doesn't like that." "What does he like?" said a man. "I don't know." "You do know. He doesn't do this with you." "Not just that. It makes him cry." "He makes me cry." "Then give him to me." "No, I can do this." "Give him to me." "No." Deep inside my head, my wiser self whispered something about snooping, something about, remember the folder back in the hospital? Something about hurting myself by knowing too much. But it was too late, way too late. I felt the cool concrete of the dining hall porch under my bare feet, smelled the old wood of its beams, and pressed my nose against the window screen. The large dining room stood dim and empty, but the little canteen area next to the kitchen, where the staff always ate, was alive like a cheerful home. The familiar lantern-shaped lamp glowed from the wooden ceiling. Beyond the counter, I saw movement. I walked in. I wasn't intruding. I wasn't disturbing this family's meal. I was just returning to my home to find that someone had invaded. The two unhappy diners looked up at once. "Jim?" said Joshua Ledbetter. "Have you ever supposedly forgotten about someone, a boy, say, only to find, the moment you see him years later, that your mind has been keeping pace with him just fine? If you haven't yet, you will, especially if you let someone, a boy for instance, deep down into your heart before you're ready, when you're, 13 or thereabouts, or 17, or even 20 or 23. You'll discover that boys change, and so do you. But then again, they don't, and neither do you. You'll discover that the older version is exactly what you'd expected he'd turn out like. And in fact, he's been there, growing up with you all along. You'll discover with a little jolt. No, make that an electric current strong enough to melt the bottoms of your bare feet and freeze them to the smooth, poured concrete floor of the dining hall that used to be your special domain. That you haven't forgotten him at all. That he's still there in your heart, only he's gotten bigger and has appendages sticking out. For example, a pretty woman with a ring on her finger and a baby, and is actually, now that you suddenly care to take your weakening pulse, still causing massive damage. He had a small, neat beard now, and was dressed in a collared shirt, but it was the same Josh. Dark, shiny hair, green eyes, skin that hinted that his mother was Middle Eastern, and a determined crimp to his jaw that hinted that his father hadn't been around much. Wide, pointy shoulders, concave chest, and a slightly jerky way of moving, as if every gesture were programmed into him milliseconds before a giant hand pressed execute. I guess I found that sexy when I was 13, and you know what? I still did, standing there, still invisible, when I found him again when I was 23. And I still sort of do. Like Eddie said, wherever you came from never leaves you, and there was something about Josh, like his whole everything, that was still wedged firmly in me. He squinted into the darkness. I could see him, but he could not see me. He held a baby, which squirmed, its red cheeks smeared with greenish goo. On the table were the messy remains of a meal. Across the table sat the Red Cross volunteer, still in her cardigan and craft show necklace. "You mean Jim still works here?" I said, stepping toward the light. "Carmel!" Josh rose abruptly, knocking his chair back. The baby in his arms started to yell. "Carmel McPherson, how's it going, kid?" He took 2 steps forward, lifted the screaming baby, grunted, then took 2 steps back and held it out to his, I could barely think it, wife, creating a kind of funny dance. The Red Cross volunteer hesitated, in rhythm, then took the baby, whose rubbery waving fingers got stuck on her neck as she swiped her long, fine hair out of his reach. This left Josh unguarded. With nothing between himself and me, he held out his arms in a what the heck gesture and came at me with a big, awkward, sideways hug. I let him. His hand was big and warm on my bare arm. He smelled the way I remembered. And a sixth sense, one I didn't know I had, kicked into action and clicked into place between us, or at least between me and him. I had no idea what he was feeling. "Darla, this is Carmel," he said. I knew it was her. The little woman, Darla, stepped around the counter and shook my hand with a tight grip. "Good to finally meet you, Carmel." "Finally?" "Welcome back home, Carmel. Welcome back." Josh's voice was unnecessarily loud and filled the empty dining hall. "And this is Isaac." The baby snuffled against Darla's neck. "Have you had dinner?" said Darla, as if there had been multiple dining options along the beach between the place she'd dropped me off and here. "We have plenty left." "What brings you back?" said Josh. I haven't. I said, realizing the wetness under my soles was just water from the lake, not melted skin from the lightning that had just struck, and that my boots, hooked over my fingers, were dropping sand on the floor. I wanted them to leave. I mean, nothing much. I have to go. A glance passed between them, giving me the feeling they knew something I didn't. Of course they knew something I didn't. They knew why they were here. They knew why my father was not. They knew why anyone was still here on Labor Day. They knew where that resort-quality deck had come from. I looked Darla in the eye. Well, I know things you don't, babe, I thought. Oh, stay, she said, giving me her warm toast smile. She flopped the baby into his booster seat where he whimpered, threatening to go off again. Here, I'll heat this for you. Freezer lasagna, said Josh and laughed. Someone forgot to shop at the grocery store this afternoon. Someone, said Darla, was giving Carmel here a ride. She slipped through the swinging doors to the kitchen, a plate of food balanced before her. Beyond the doors, a microwave. That was new, too. Beeped several times and then started to whir. So really, Josh said, sitting down and leaning back in his plastic chair, hands clasped behind his head, why are you here? I'm the new director, he said. We started. Honey, he yelled toward the kitchen. How long have we been here? Darla poked her head through the swinging doors. 2 public school groups, 1 cross-country team, and 1 very frustrating Baptist family retreat. Right, said Josh. He spread his hands with a flourish. Welcome to year-round retreat management. All year? You hadn't heard? I shook my head. Where have you been? Away, I said. It's been a while. He gave me a look of genuine curiosity, which morphed into a glimmer of admiration, before his memory caught up with him and his face settled into the I suspected as much from you grin I'd been expecting. What happened to your hand, he said. A cooking accident? So you still work in a kitchen? I ignored this. Where did that deck come from? He leaned back again in the chair so hard it bent under his weight. He exhaled loudly and scratched the back of his head. A lot is going on at Cedar Haven, Carmel. Big changes. Good stuff. We're here full time, me and Darla. There's a new office building with an apartment above it for us. They're building new cabins and a dorm building with a meeting room. And heat. Heat, welcome to the modern era, right? Who is they? The volunteer board of directors after your dad left? My dad left? Like left? Well, yeah. Hold on a sec. He popped out of his chair and went into the kitchen. Behind the swinging metal doors, the microwave beeped. The baby, left alone with me, squirmed in his booster seat, straining after his parents. I put one hand, my good one, on his squishy t-shirt swaddled back, but he didn't seem to notice. Don't get too used to anything, I said. I mean, it was no big deal, really. New steps to the lake, new dorms, new year-round something. But it was a big deal. Change here meant something. My father not here meant something. I felt like the baby here, straining around to find he'd disappeared. But through which door? Thanks.
Thank you, Kate. That was fabulous. I'm Sarah Jefferis. I am an author, editor, and mentor. I have my own writing consultant business called Right Now, but today I'm going to read you poems. This first one is called Please Leave Immediately, and it's from a prompt from a Colgate Writers Conference that I went to. Please leave immediately. Please leave immediately, my dear. I want to take you in the hallway and keep you where you belong, on your knees. On your knees, I can keep you. Everything you need is here. I am a bottom tweeter. Please leave immediately. I have a crush on all of you. My long-forgotten tribe, my love poem requires a smoothie and Seymour glass and a couch you don't want to put your face on. The body is miraculous, and the goal of this is not to let the lack of success as a dater be too obvious on the page. So please, for God's sakes, leave immediately. The greatest poem is the human nervous system. Please leave immediately, or I will harvest your tongue and pig slaughter your syllables. Just leave immediately. The intellectual anatomy of I am says I am not yet. Immediately, leave. Please is a gossip column about my body and a plot horror. Please leave immediately. I am a master curator. No, I did not say the other, but that's also true. Come with me to the monster. Come, my monster. Come, monster. I know all of your names. Please leave epistemology immediately. You are hereby permitted to all men. All men are hereby permitted to you. Please leave immediately. I am trespassing gender on genre. Don't make me choose. I go walking after midnight out in the moonlight. I have a scar on my tongue. It has my father's name. I have not spoken to him in 20 years, and for this I will cut myself open. The obvious considerations are touching, so please leave immediately. Oh, my white whale, you can't libel the dead. When you find us all, we will be gone. That's the first one. The second one is called Without the Men Watching. My stomach is 5 seconds behind my mouth. My stomach tells me not to, but my mouth says, sure, yes, absolutely. But not when I'm with you. This is how I know you are more than friend. How I want to take you upstairs without the men watching and make you moan, want even to let you hurt me and not run in the night. I say, I might be dating someone, but he does not have me. I don't have him. You tell me he does have me, and you wish he didn't. And I can't stop staring at your left hand. This one is called Riddle Me Again. And it's in response and uses a line from Worcestershire. I don't know if you all know her, but she's the poet that's on Beyonce's video. She's the shit right now. So, riddle me again. I am not your burning house. You can't rush back in and get what you forgot. I am not the car wreck or the lost rearview mirror. Not a horse to be tamed, not a crossword puzzle, not an alphabet for you to learn. I am not a mat for you to practice on, not a fence for you to sit on. I am not waiting for you to choose. I am not a chess piece for you to move. I am not your boy. I am not invisible and not made more visible by your stare. I am not the other in the room. And my alone feels so good. I will only have you, as Shire said, I will only have you if you are sweeter than my solitude. Thanks. And I have a few new ones. This one is called Welcome Home, you said. Everyone should have a home, and I do not live in your heart, though you say I have a room there. I want to believe that you don't rent it out, auction it off to the highest bidder. Who are you when you have not seen me in 2 weeks and in 5 minutes you have me between your legs and welcome home is the first word out of your mouth? I am not a homemaker, a housewife, a lover of brick and mortar. I dream in suitcases, in passports, in moving walkways, in runways, in pressurized cabins, in first class with umbrella cocktails. This one is called Needle Pulse. When you touch me, do you replicate all the lions before you or draw them out to behead them? When you touch me, do you feel the bowl of fish and chocolate spinning my head? When you touch me, do you know I lived for years without this because I had girls that I gave it all up for family? When you touch me, do you hear all the football players who took turns beneath the bleachers? When you touch me, do you see my brother's friends who tied me down in the fort? When you touch me, I don't split in half. I don't witness the Sarahs before or call out to the year I wanted to be named Beth. There is no angel to wrestle, no one asking for a blessing. When you touch me, I am not transported back or shoved forward. When you touch me, I am rooted. Branches blossom in places I didn't know possible. In daylight, I can bear almost anything. Thank you. The next reader is Angelina Mirabella, and she has a wonderful novel called The Sweetheart, which is longlisted for the Center for Fiction First Novel Prize and the Crooks Corner Book Prize. And you can learn more about her at angelinamirabella.com. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for coming, and thanks to Spring Rights and Buffalo Street Books for having me here. I'm going to read a short section from my novel. I don't think you need to know much except that it's 1954, it's Nashville, and the protagonist, Gwen, is one half of a tag team wrestling team, and this is the night before she's going to wrestle in her first title bout and her first shoot. In other words, she has to actually compete. Later that night, you and Mimi check into the Maxwell House Hotel. It's coffee good to the last drop. At the same time that Kay and Vera step out of the elevator, carrying a bottle in a paper bag. "Hi, ladies," says Vera. You've never seen Vera, short-haired, hard-jawed, and bullet-eyed, in anything other than her wrestling gear. So it's a little jarring to see her in street clothes at all, let alone the one she's in now. Trousers, saddle Oxfords, and a man's blazer. We're going to catch up with some of the guys for a few cocktails. She slides the bottle out of the bag a few inches, rum, and rattles it. You can't help but stare at the hand on the neck of that bottle, in particular the nails, long, manicured, and lacquered. She returns the bottle to its paper sleeve. Care to join us? No thanks, Mimi says quickly. Joe will kill us if we're caught out in public with you two. Oh, get off it, Meme, says Vera. We're just going to the local watering hole. Besides, no one knows who you are anyway. Mimi's posture steels, her eyes narrow. Don't you ladies have kind of a big match tomorrow? Sure do, says Kay. But if we all have a drink, then we'll all be in the same position, now won't we? She turns to you, eyes flashing. What do you say, fresh meat? Want to go for a cocktail, or you want to sit in your hotel room watching the paint fade? The warning look Mimi gives you, wide eyes, puckered lips, makes it painfully clear what you're supposed to say. But this sounds harmless enough. It might even be fun. At the very least, it could be a pleasant diversion from the usual monotony of holing up in your room and suffering through Mimi's gloating and know-it-allness. Besides, why should she get to call all the shots? This last thought is what clinches it for you. It's time to claim your rightful position as full partner in this arrangement. One drink, you say to Mimi, and then we'll take a cab home. Mimi points her finger at you and opens her mouth. She's about to let you have it, but instead she stops herself, takes a quick look at Vera and Kay, and changes her mind. Mimi takes the business of wrestling narratives more seriously than most. As mad as she is, she has no interest in presenting anything less than a united front. There will be no argument in front of the enemy. Fine, she says, one drink. The bar, a real hole in the wall in Printer's Alley, leaves a lot to be desired, but it does have a jukebox and a small parquet dance floor. After the bartender makes your drinks from Vera's bottle, you and Mimi take seats at a table on its edge and watch as the giant Austrian repeatedly slings Kay through his legs and over his shoulders. Mimi drains her glass in short order. That's my one, she says, standing up. Finish up. I'm going to the ladies' room. When I get back, you better be ready to go. You take small, purposeful sips of your drink. Screw Mimi. You don't want to hurry up and hurry out. And you're not going to. Instead, you swing your foot in time to the music. It's too bad your toe's broken. It might be fun to cut in and show the Austrian there's nothing Kay's got that you don't. Plus, Kay might welcome the reprieve. She looks flustered and dizzy. Sure enough, before the song ends, she says a quick word to her partner and then falls into Mimi's vacated seat. I can't do it anymore, she says. Kay waves to the bartender, signals for him to mix her another drink, and starts talking your ears off. Turns out she's a former actress, with bit parts in Ladies of the Chorus, Life with Father, and Gentleman's Agreement. Do you remember her? You don't, but nod and say you thought she looked familiar. Someone is at your back. You assume it's Mimi, but when you turn around, you discover the Austrian, barrel-chested, sweat-drenched, and ready for more. Kay waves him off and sticks her thumb out at you. Ask fresh meat here. The Austrian extends his catcher's mitt of a hand. What do you say? Can't, you say, and point down at your foot. Broken toe. He rolls his eyes and heads to the bar to hit up someone else. Good one, Kay says. Good nothing. I broke it last night. Kay reaches behind her neck, cups her hand around her hair, and pulls it over to one shoulder, all the while leaning in, lowering her eyelids, looking down her nose, like she is sharpening her focus on you. Which one? You wiggle your left foot. This one. Kay's eyes brighten. Her laugh is shrill. That's a rather convenient injury. Now you don't have to suffer through that ogre pulling your arm out of the sockets. You look toward the bathroom. Mimi still hasn't come out yet. Should you go check on her? No, Mimi can take care of herself. Besides, Kay seems sweet. You understand why you're not supposed to be friends with your rivals. But what harm is there in just talking? Why did you stop acting, you ask? It wasn't exactly my idea. She searches your face. What about you? You're a pretty girl. Ever think about it? Acting? Who, me? Why, with the little haircut, you'd look just like Marilyn Monroe. Here. Kay snatches the elastic out of your ponytail, releasing your hair, and then combs the ends into her hands before holding them up, simulating a bob. It will be years before you can unpack everything that is going on in this moment. To understand there are lots of ways a girl can be seduced, and many reasons for it. For now, you are only pleasantly surprised at this gesture of intimacy. You try not to be hopeful, but you can't help but think it would be very nice to make a friend. Very glamorous, Kay says. Just one more thing. Kay opens up your clutch, somehow knowing what she will find in there. The lipstick you use every night as part of your Ice Princess routine. Kay twists the tube until the well-rounded end appears and applies it. There's a loud, purposeful cough behind you, and then Mimi says, I hate to interrupt this love fest, but it's high time we get the hell out of here. Kind of a big day tomorrow, wouldn't you say, Gwen? Your stomach flops nervously. You might not feel the need to adhere to kayfabe quite as religiously as Mimi, but even you can admit this is over the line. Kay, however, isn't the least bit rattled. Gorgeous, she says, just like your name. Calling Kay Pepper a pretty face is a serious understatement. The woman is a total knockout. The next evening, when you see her entering the hippodrome for the big match, she's cloaked in a mink coat, actual mink, even though it's 60 degrees. The flips on the ends of her ebony page boy bounce as she preens for the Converse-clad boys and their slightly less sex-dazed fathers, who all but accost her, thrusting pens and pads into her manicured hands, clamoring for her to pose with them. When she begins rewarding them for their patience and loyalty, Mimi makes derisive noises and mutters, Miss Hotshot. But you are soaking it all in, the alluring gait, the charismatic flounce, and most importantly, the adoring fandom. What you wouldn't give to spin heels like Kay Pepper. You stand there enchanted until Mimi breaks the spell with a slap to the back of your head. Hey, you say, rubbing the spot, what was that for? I think you know, says Mimi, her brow and mouth two horizontal lines. Kay's reception contrasts quite starkly with the treatment you and Mimi receive. Later in the evening, when the two of you step into the aisle, you are greeted with the fiercest disapproval of your short career. This goes beyond the usual tunnel of booing spectators. For the first time, the crowd dares to make its threats physical. Mimi is pelted with an egg, and then a beer can. Most of their hatred is directed at her. It seems you might reach the relative safety of the ring unscathed until, just steps away from the apron, you take a tomato in the chest. You should know better than to stand there dumbfounded, staring with disbelief at the wet stain on your suit. If you're going to make yourself a target, then don't act surprised when someone takes advantage of it. In this case, a teenage girl, 1 or 2 years younger than you by the looks of it, with an aisle seat, who is perfectly positioned to give you a fierce push. There's not much to it, In addition to years, you've got some inches and pounds on her. But it's hard enough to force you back a step and leave you standing there with a dumb look on your face. That leaves everything up to Mimi, who steps in front of you and gives the girl a quick lesson in the art of the shove, sending her straight to the floor before grabbing your elbow and leading you to the ring. Was that necessary, you ask, hoisting yourself onto the ropes? Please, says Mimi, rope in hand. I gave her exactly what she came for. Once you are both in the corner of the ring, Mimi explains your role, to give her short, occasional reprieves, and then to tag out as soon as you get her signal. You might be insulted by this reduction of faith if your stomach hadn't been colonized by leg-thumping rabbits. This is the big one after all. Tonight you could go home with a belt. So you stick to the plan, and Mimi pins Kay in the first fall while you lift nary a finger. But during the second fall, Vera launches her over the ropes, and when you see Mimi hit the front row spectators, a party of red-faced, soft-bellied Kiwanis Club types who push her off and onto the floor, you know it's time to make the switch. You jump down to help her out. Stay in as long as you can, she whispers. I hurt all over. Yeah, okay, you say, and climb over the ropes. There, waiting in the ring, isn't Vera, but Kay, wiggling her fingers at you. Hello, fresh meat, she says. What a relief. Vera's a monster, but Kay, if you can't handle Kay, then you can't handle anyone. She confirms as much with her first hit, a paltry open-handed slap to the head. Go ahead, Gwen. Show her what you're made of. Knock the wind out of her with a judo chop. Grab her by the hair. Toss her over your shoulder. While she crawls around on the mat trying to catch her breath, climb to the top of the turnbuckle. And the minute she's on her feet, fly at her. Take her down. After you both hit the mat, you're sure you hear a noise of real misery from beneath you. When the ref begins to count, you whisper, "You okay?" "Gee, Gwen," says Kay. Her face registers pain, yet her hushed voice drips with playfulness. "I thought we were friends." You shouldn't care about being Kay's friend, of course. Not here, not now, but for a moment it gets to you. And however unconsciously, you ease off a bit. It's only a moment, but it costs you big. Before the last count, Kay works her shoulder off the mat, and then kicks out of the pen. You hurry onto your feet, but she's ready for you. First with an elbow to the stomach. "You really shouldn't make it this easy," she says. While you are still doubled over, she grinds your toe into the mat with the heel of her heavy-soled boot. That toe. The left one. The one you told her about last night. Kay never wanted to make nice, you moron. She wanted to disarm you, and she succeeded because she is a master at falsifying a connection. She knows how to leverage her assets and create the illusion of love. Usually she relies on those bedroom eyes and pouty lips, but for you she shifted her tactics ever so slightly, putting away the come-hither stare in favor of a friendly smile and a compliment. She saw a lonely girl in need of a friend, and she played the role. And you fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. Now you hit the mat, reverberating with pain from the elastic of your ponytail down to your battered little toe. Out of the corner of your eye, you see Mimi at the ropes, her arms stretched out. You summon all of your willpower to get to your knees so you can crawl to her, but before you get anywhere close, Kay kicks you once, hard, in the stomach. You fall over onto your back, and she's on you in seconds. That's it for this fall, Gwen. You're toast. After the ref calls it, you return to your corner. Mimi spits over his shoulder. "What the hell just happened?" she says, and you lie through your teeth. "I have no idea." Meanwhile, across the ring, Vera throws an arm around Kay's neck and pulls her close, knocks Kay's forehead with her own. This is as much public affection as they allow each other, as you will ever see between them. You don't think anything of it, but I've heard every rumor. I know history. For me, that gesture has only one meaning. I love you. It's a hard way to live, getting paid to publicly roll around with other women for the pleasure of an audience who would condemn you for doing the same behind closed doors, to make sure those doors stay firmly closed. And yet they will do it. They will love each other as quietly and invisibly as possible, insisting they are only friends, only roommates. It's instinctive kayfabe, deeply ingrained by a lifetime of fear and reprisals. If you ask me, the secret to Kay Pepper's success is linked to this secret. It all boils down to one word: survival. She doesn't want to work the boys into a frenzy. She has to. These are track covering, throw off the scent tactics. This role has been the longest acting gig of her life. This is what I wish you could see, Gwen. I understand why you admire her sex appeal and self-possession, but it is not as simple as it seems. It never is. Thank you.
So we're going to close out this great reading, thank you all for coming, with my dear friend Heather Dorn, and she recently completed her PhD in creative writing from Binghamton, and her work can be found at Patterson Literary Review, Ragazine, Kentucky Review, and other journals. So welcome, Heather.
Hi, I'm just going to read 3 today, and the last one is a prose poem. And I'm going to start off with one that was inspired by a Slate article that I read recently. I just wrote this week. It was called A Brief History of Menstruation in Space, and it was a lot about like NASA just misunderstanding women's bodies. So it's called For Astronauts Who Menstruate. Men worried microgravity might cause the blood to flow up into the fallopian tubes through the abdomen, blood swallowing the uterus, retrograde menstruation. When I was 8, Krista McAuliffe died in my classroom, silently on the screen, then televisions wheeled away. I didn't know everything that blood could mean. 2 years before, Sally Ride became the first American woman in space. They packed her a makeup kit, tampons she'd need for a week's mission. The engineers thought maybe 100 would be enough. Scientists have not studied the long-term effects of periods in space. They don't know how deep space radiation affects hormones. Astronauts who menstruate should use IUDs or stop biology. Shannon Lucid couldn't stay away from space, went on a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and 5th flight. She took a ride to the space station Mir, stayed out past curfew, uterine tissue growing outside her body, endometriosis of the satellites, and gears, endometriosis of the landing apparatus, trapped in space, nowhere to go but up into the retrograde makeup kit, packed by kindly male engineers, 188 days in space, 50 flavored condoms, and a chocolate bar. This next one is, I have a series of poems that are how-to poems, and they're not necessarily instructive. This is called How to Be a Woman in a Man's Idea. I fall down the stairs like a rag doll, again and again when I am 4. The hat rack breaks my body's tumble, and I thump to a stop. Nobody ever moves that hat rack, maybe worried I'd crack head first into the wall instead. Better to be impaled. There is something slippery about being 4 and next to the steps in my house. There is something that still pushes me over the edge of that first step now. I have seen how this is inherited. I watched my brother bang his 3-year-old head into concrete over and over again. He is too sturdy to fall down the stairs and has to break himself another way instead. I see my mother's face, like blue ink spilled on her eyes. She did not fall, whatever she says. I watch my father's fist raise above her, gripped, as if he held the pen that would ink her face. There is something hopeful about being a woman in a man's story. Stepfathers like to stare, and I learn there is a violence that is quietly louder. There is something that still pushes at the edges of comfort when men talk to me, as if the switch reads Medusa kitten. There is something about the way my father's lamb was not done right, and when people finally care about Janae Rice because they saw the video, I remember how much like brushing my teeth it felt, sitting at the top of the stairs listening to my mother cry. And I never knew when the step he would come into my dark room or bend my body on the couch as I half slept or grab the back of my head in his palm, gathering the hair like a twisted ponytail, pushing me lower. I fall down like a doll over and over. There is something slippery about being a woman in a man's idea. If he says hi, I want to tell him, fuck off. But if he tells me, watch where the hell you're going, my instinct is to follow him home purring and beg to crawl at his feet. Wait till he's asleep, then take a sharp, deep slice at his throat and crawl back street side. And I'm going to end with a prose poem called How to Fall in Love with a Straight Woman. Close your eyes. You don't have to try to think of her. She just appears across the table in composition theory on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Try to get into her group. Sit at the outskirts while a curtain of brown hair lets in the sun and then covers her face. Try not to make her mad. She gets mad and gorgeous easily. Stalk her on MySpace. She loves Texas. You don't. You can work through this. She loves Jesus. You really don't. You can work through this. She likes men. You are not men. When she finds out you are the H's for hiding from nuns from the internet blog, feel your face heat to boil as she talks of you to others in the group. She's so funny, slamming her hand on the table. Smile and look down because touching eyes is painful. Smile and look down because funny only comes from fingertips. Take the paper she gives you at the end of the class, folded up scrap, creased and smeared with ink, a phone number, a date, a party. She drops it in your hand. Feel sick and full of lightning bugs. Feel ill and lit up from within. Close your eyes, or the light will seep out in the hallway. Learn to drink with your husband at a free hotel happy hour years before. Drink red wine until your toes feel like the tips of the fire that spirals up the chimney, escaping to live somewhere wild. Get to the party and take a large glass of red. Sit next to her on the back porch swing. See patio chairs of people around you playing I've Never and other high school games you've never played. Too serious, no interest in unsanctioned risk or stupidity. But today you play. You've never been to Canada. You've never had that drink, sex on the beach. You've never bargained for a better grade. You've never asked for an extension. You've never written the paper the day it was due. You've never asked anyone for the answers. You only cheated for elementary school love. They make you drink anyway. You've never been arrested. You've never been suspended. You've never been on academic probation. You've never had a cavity, and people are starting to get annoyed now. You've never dated an English major. You've never dated a professor. You've never kissed a woman. Watch her drink her beer like she kissed her whole high school. Hold your untouched wine as she pushes heavy hair from her face, pulls you in like a secret, and kisses you. Feel the Gertrude Stein fly, your fingertips, fly from your fingertips, fly from wherever inside you that you don't know you have. Feel her tongue tell your body what to do. Feel her hair through your fingers and try not to pull. Feel your seating arrangement change. Feel around for your bearings when she starts to pull away. Send an atheist's prayer that she does it again. Drink when she tells you to. Become the girl everyone dares her to kiss. Become the girl to dare to kiss. Come up with elaborate scenarios as to why you should make out. Sometimes she will say okay. Clip your hair to her swing and forget about it until forever. Kiss her when people are watching because she's less likely to kiss you when you're alone. You can work through this. Kiss her at parties, spinning dizzy like a tornado. Kiss her on the swing, pulling back and flying high in the tornado. Kiss her in the kitchen against the cabinets, in the hallway against the wall, on the couch, lying on a corner as she strips for you when everyone else has gone home. Only touch where she puts your hands. She sits on your lap. She takes off her shirt. She turns the music up. Only touch where she puts your hands. She doesn't like girls, want to go that far. It's just for fun and play, she says. Listen to her say she doesn't want to do it so much. Watch her pull away, fall for a tall guy with traditional tastes. Watch them love Texas together. Watch him be nice and respectable. Hate him. Try to make out with her until the guy she's dating says he doesn't like it. Try to kiss her anyway. Try not to cry. Try to make her mad. Have too much to drink. Lick her shoulder. Try to remember to pick up your clip but forget. Have another drink and slosh it around like a hurricane. Cry. Try to make her eyes flash at you, mad or anything. Try to close your eyes. She will disappear. She will be a friend or network connection in the near future. She will have half-traditional kids who love Jesus and Texas. The swing will rust and the clip will be stolen by a squirrel. She will barely remember making out with you, laughing like the secret was real, how that part ended. She will be a good professional contact. She will be a good reflective reminder. She will be filed under Firestarter.